Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Reengineering the Chess Classic series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we are carrying on our look at the great Italian player Sergio Mariotti with a really nice game against the very solid Bulgarian player Ivan Radulov, played in Venice in 1971. Queen's Gambit declined, super solid, not when Mariotti is playing against it. Let's have a look how the game went. So, d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, and Mariotti plays the exchange variation with bishop g5. Very popular. Became very popular because of Botvinnik's advocacy. He played a number of quite striking games with this opening. I mean, nowadays the engines don't think it's that great. But I think it still remains difficult for human players to face as black. The basic idea is that white keeps this knight on g1 for now and will aim to play e3, bishop d3, knight e2, and then break in the center with e4. And if black doesn't get it right, then this can be very, very dangerous indeed. Actually, what the engines are doing is they're ending up pushing the queenside pawns very, very far indeed. Always thought to cause weaknesses in my day. How could you weaken so many queenside squares? But it turns out that the activity is far more important. But we're back in 1971 here, so the black players are still making it all up without engine assistance. So let's have a look what Radulov did. So bishop e7, e3, castles bishop d3, knight bd7, and knight e2. And Radulov played the move b6. Sensible development, bishop coming to b7, and then you're going to try and play c5. This kind of plays into white's hands. I think the point is that black doesn't have very much pressure on the white center. Black plays c5, white can simply ignore that pretty much. And playing the bishop to b7 takes it away from the king side. And what Mariotti does is, as soon as the opponent's pieces tend to drift away from the king side, Mariotti is out there hitting at the king, and that's what he does. Knight to g3, looking to play knight to f5. Radulov maybe overreacted just a little bit, played the move g6. It's a possibility, yeah. It's not crazy, but it probably wasn't quite as dangerous as all that really, or rather the cure is worse than the disease somehow. The engine's tending to prefer h6 and c6, and just give up the two bishops and then just play normally afterwards. It's not great, but it's not so bad. After g6, Mariotti played a super move. He played the move h4. Funnily enough, in this day and age where we just expect engines to keep on moving the rook's pawns up the board, this is not the engine's very favourite move. They really like the move f4 in this position. Bishop b7, bishop h6, rook e8, and then f5, and playing for the attack along the f file. And a lot of wins in this position. Just show you just a few little games there. A6, and then this was a nice one. Torch playing against Stockfish takes, and then h4 following up with h5. Very dangerous for black to face. The engines can just about hold it maybe, but this would be pretty nasty for a human player to face. Haven't actually seen that type of attack, f4, f5, taking on g6 and then h4, h5 afterwards. So definitely an idea worth seeing. But h4 is pretty nice too. And it's not the absolute engine favourite, but they still assess it very, very favourably indeed. h5 played by Radulov, and the engines don't like this at all. It feels really... It feels wrong to me too, just humanly speaking. But it's always a bit of a dilemma, really. When that's one of the powerful points about the push of the rook's pawn. Black has to decide, where do you stop it? Do you let it come forwards, or do you try and stop it as soon as possible? In general, the engines do tend to prefer to stop the march of the rook's pawn as soon as possible. But the complicating factor here is that the king is already on the king side. So the weakness of this g6 pawn that's caused when you play h5, the pawn's now defended only by the f7 pawn. That's really, really serious. Yeah, the engines were much more into just let the counterplay come, and we'll try and survive what happens. The big point, the big tactical point, is that the engines were looking at h5 takes, f takes g6, e takes d4, and then this move knight g4, which is pretty incredible. You're taking on d4 to open up the e file, which means that after bishop e7 you can go queen takes e7. And if you go queen g4, you're not taking on g5 yet, you're playing knight e5 with a double attack on d3 and g4. So taking that bishop on d3 helps keep these pawns safe because you don't have a piece attacking there. And then afterwards you can take on g5. Yeah, there's some incredible lines here. Queen h4, let me just show you that. Hitting e7 and h7, knight d3, king f1. Rook f2 check, king g1. Funnily enough, the engines were agreeing a draw here, so I asked them to carry on just a little bit longer. Bishop g5, queen h7 check. Here, queen h8 check. This was one stockfish torch game. King e7, rook h7, king d6. Thank goodness for that. Bishop on g5, protecting the king. Queen g7, bishop e3, setting up an almighty discovered attack. King h2, bishop e6, and we ended up actually in eventually in a draw by repetition here. Here takes, bishop g5, knight b5 check, king c6, queen takes g6, hitting these two, king b5, queen d3, king a5, queen c3, king b5, queen d3. And that ended up as a draw by repetition. Crazy stuff, completely crazy stuff. Don't need to follow any of it. You probably understand just as little as I do. But it's just to give an idea of, this is the level already at which you're having to operate in order to deal with this attack. So it shows you how strong this h4 attack actually is. But it's all really to do with, the lack of pressure that black has in the center. And actually, with this whole opening up the e file idea in knight g4, black somehow out of nowhere managing to manufacture some central play to counter the wing attack. Yeah, very, very tricky to see. I wouldn't expect to find that during a game. But after h5, queen c2 played. 1.39 already for the engines, which is, for modern engines, a winning attack there. King g7 to defend g6. And now actually something quite interesting. Mariotti played a move, knight ce2, which I thought was absolutely the best. It's the one you're expecting. You're bringing the knight round to e2 and attacking f4, attacking g6 here, together with the bishop and the queen. And you're keeping this knight on here so that it can come into f5 or h5. But actually, the engines just want something a little bit different. They want you to move the g3 knight to e2. And what's the idea? Well, the idea is the following, that after something like rook e8, we can just go knight f4, and we're actually attacking the d5 pawn as well as the g6 pawn. So actually, you're just going to end up picking up a pawn. That's just how simple it is. It's not to do it with an attack, it's just to do with material. And of course here you're threatening knight takes c7 as well. So yeah, it's just very, very strong position for white. And the key point is that if you try and stop the knight coming to f4 with bishop d6, then we've just got knight takes d5, exploiting this pin. So actually, knight e2 more or less wins a pawn for white, just because of this very strong double threat of knight attacking d5 and g6 and keeping this knight on c3. But knight c2, there's nothing wrong with that. It's still a very strong move indeed. Radulov played bishop b4 check, king f1, and then bishop d6. And yeah, bishop d6 is possible because we don't have this knight takes d5 anymore. So after knight f4, Radulov was able to take on f4 and destroy that. But you're looking at Mariotti's opening moves here, and they're pretty concrete, right? Very quick knight g3, h4 played, moving a piece twice in the opening, bringing it round there. The king not castling anymore. And he carries on with that non-standard play with a very nice move, e takes f4. And you're basically, creating a battering ram, creating an f pawn basically to attack the black king side. And yeah, I mean, it's really, really strong. And the engine's already giving 2.26. So, all this non-standard play, opening play from Mariotti in a 1d4 opening, just leading to a huge advantage there. And it's really impressive there how many ideas Mariotti seemed to have in both 1e4 and 1d4. I mean, nowadays we're used to players playing pretty much everything, but wasn't that normal back in the day somehow, and players tended to just to stabilize on either 1d4 or 1e4, and but yeah, Mariotti playing a lot of very interesting ideas in both. So c5 played, and now f5. Yeah, queen d2 was quite interesting from Torch, just intending after c4 just to let the bishop drop back, but Stockfish was very happy with f5, which is what Mariotti did. c4 from Radulov, important move to try and force the bishop away from the diagonal and to weaken the attack on g6. I mean, I actually wondered, doesn't this look rather strong? F takes g6, and after cd3 we throw in this move. But amazingly, black is able to survive with this nice idea. Takes, and then knight c5, just opening up the attack on the queen and threatening bishop f5. Also threatening bishop a6, by the way, as well. And well, this was I let the engines sort of try this out and see what it was like, but there wasn't much more than a draw here. This was where it ended up. Bishop f6, king f6, queen d2 looks rather sneaky with a queen g5 mate threat, but there's plenty of ways for black to find a draw here. I like this one the most. Rook g8 check, rook g6 check, rook g7 check, and we all get a draw here. So f takes g6, not the best, but yeah, Mariotti played very calmly. Bishop e2. Now that black's played c4, okay, you've driven the white pieces away for a little while, but there's no more pressure against d4. This d pawn remains, which means that the knight can't develop here. So, I mean, all these pieces are kind of really stuck, right? And the pressure against g6 is still continuing. And now Mariotti played a very nice idea here, queen d2. Now, of course, there's the obvious idea, threatening bishop h6. But there's a couple of other ideas that are taking part, one of which is just to be able to move the bishop around d1 to c2 and carry on putting pressure against the g6 pawn. Just very nice, these nice little small creeping moves somehow. And it's actually got another idea as well. Rook h8 played by Radulov to stop bishop h6 check. Rook e1, developing the rook before, looking to go bishop d1 to c2. And now bishop a6 from Radulov. And I think you can see Radulov had also spotted this idea, thinking bishop d1, he wanted to play c3 check with a terrible discovered attack there. So how do you want to play now? Well, Mariotti found a very nice idea, implemented it in a very good way. The nicest way I think of doing it would have been to play f3 immediately. You just want to play the king to f2, and if queen takes g3, then bishop f4 traps the queen. So that's quite nice. Mariotti played bishop f4 first, and after queen c6 played f3. Doesn't really matter at all. They're both very, very good indeed. It's just I always like I like leaving a piece if it doesn't absolutely need to be there. If I can find a tactical way around somewhere, I always feel that must be the most efficient and the best way of doing it. But this is absolutely superb. The engines don't complain at all. A lot of the games after f3 transpose back into here. Rook e8 and king f2. I mean, what you see with this is a very nice mixture in this game from Mariotti of some very non-standard aggressive opening moves and then some nice maneuvering before going for the final assault. It's really nice, actually. So rook e7 played by Radulov and bishop d1. just bishop coming out here. And actually Mariotti is not at all averse to swapping off some rooks, because there are plenty of dark square invasion channels and a big target on here. And yeah, with the rooks gone, I mean, black's got no firepower at all to do anything against the white position. So yeah, it's as long as the queens stay on, black's got white's got loads and loads of attack, and black's got loads and loads of problems still with the king. So rook e8 played, rook takes e7 takes, bishop c2, just teeing up nicely there. Bishop c8 from Radulov, trying to cover the f5 square. And then rook e1, very simple. I mean, there are other possibilities. Check and queen g5 would also be pretty good. But rook e1, nothing wrong with that. After rook e1, the idea is queen e1, and we're aiming for e7 now. The wins now are too numerous to mention. Mariotti goes for a very nice one, queen e7. There's a few nice threats, including bishop h6 check, diverting the king away from the protection of the knight there. So black plays queen e8 to defend it, and then queen takes a7. But I mean, this is just horrible for black. I mean, no counterplay, and white's got countless ways of doing it. Yeah, quite apart from even just taking this pawn. I mean, black played queen b5, both to defend the pawn and to try and get a little bit of counterplay. Queen takes a3, and now, or queen a3 rather, just defending b2. And here, I think just desperation struck for Radulov. He played bishop takes f5. I mean, taking this thing would be winning enough. But you might want to stop the video and just see what Mariotti found to round off the game nicely. It was the move, bishop h6 check. And here Radulov resigned. Because after bishop h6, we go queen f8 check, king h7. And then something like knight takes f5 is going to be the best here. Threatening mate on g7. And after g takes f5, bishop f5 is checkmate. I thought that was a really nice game from Mariotti. Actually, the type of 1d4 game that from time to time I played, I feel, and really enjoyed very much. Just because d4's got the reputation of being a bit less aggressive than 1e4, but you can play it aggressively too. And all these moves, h4. And then this non-standard knight e2, just as quickly as possible, coming round to an attack against the black king, not worrying about losing the right to castle, accepting double pawns, and then, launching the attack further. That's how Gary used to play 1d4, and that's how a lot of people of my generation who were so influenced by Gary wanted to play d4 as well. But I like very much, the way that Mariotti then just played very calmly, just brought all his pieces into play, king into play, rooks into play, and then just redeployed against the king. Exchanged off the pieces, created all those gaps on the dark squares in the black position. Not enough pieces, black just didn't have enough pieces to defend everything, and then invaded with the queen in the end. A really nice strategical game with lots of added attacks against the king thrown in, as you'd always expect with Mariotti. Really very, very impressive indeed. There we are. Hope you enjoyed that game. Got lots more to come, so do stay tuned. Give a like, subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying it, and hope to see you at the next videos. Thanks for watching.